Jurassic Park is the film that inspired me to pursue a career in the arts. That path has led me to work on visual effects for major TV shows, create animations for Metallica, Giphy, and Hallmark, direct my own projects, create viral videos, and even create my own dino store. And I think I can speak for most Jurassic fans when I say, as a kid, the dinner scene is kind of boring, but as an adult, it's actually one of the strongest and most fascinating scenes in the whole film, full of rich character development through philosophical, thematic discourse, some of which is eerily applicable to today's rapidly advancing technology created for profit by careless billionaires. Juxtaposed behind this conversation is a slideshow presentation pitching Jurassic Park to investors. Though the images are dark and mostly cut off by the widescreen format, the unofficial open matte version of the film reveals considerably more of the original 35mm frame. Since I could identify the first couple of slides as recycled art from the movie itself, I figured it would be fun to assemble a faithful recreation of the full 4-minute long slideshow. I didn't know it yet, but I had just begun a multiple-month epic film history research project and content creation exercise, which would lead me to sift through interviews, schematics, production notes, behind-the-scenes photos, and production art. Then, test my professional Photoshop skills, experiment with image prompts across evolving versions of Runway, ChatGPT, Google Gemini, and even force me to learn Blender. This project was a serious beast, a major labor of love, so if you would please give a like, a subscribe, maybe a share, hype, comment, whatever, it would truly mean the world. Now we got a lot to cover, so hold on to your butts. Now, directly behind John Hammond looks like it's concept art for Jurassic Park The Ride, Jungle River Cruise. And from the official Jurassic Park The Ride press kit, I found a high-quality version of the image. Then a quick Google reverse image search found me this even wider one. Next is some early Raptor pen concept art by John Bell, the art director for Jurassic Park. Easy enough to find, and this is great. Now, I knew this slide looked familiar, but I just could not identify it, so I had to ask Reddit, and it was solved pretty quick. It was the entrance to the Jungle River Cruise, and I was able to pretty quickly find a nice high-quality version of this image. So, fantastic. Okay, so now the tricky one. I'll cut this image out and straighten it out. I think it's just stock footage of plants, so I'll try to use Runway image to image to generate this image. But it gave me weird results, so I decided to try ChatGPT, which used Dahlia 3 for its image generation in April 2025. And it did a pretty good job. I asked it to brighten it, and I took it all into Photoshop and found the proper exposure. Awesome. Now, the first slide we actually see in this scene is right behind Ellie, and it's of the Jurassic Park Aviary concept art. Now, this image isn't the hardest to find, but it doesn't really seem to exist in a really high quality version. So using the image with the most image, I asked ChatGPT to upscale, and here's what it did. Slightly unsatisfactory because it changed a number of the details in the picture, but, retained that painterly style. It would do for now. Months later, I logged into Google Gemini and using Nano Banana input this picture and requested an enhance and upscale that retains the original style. Great success. Moving on. That's the river adventure, and that I recognize as being waterfalls in this piece. I'm pretty impressed that I was able to figure this out, and I was able to find a super high quality version of this image. Now, this is some concept art of the rotunda. I've been able to find somewhat higher quality version of it. So I went to chat and I said, hey, upscale this concept art, but this is not the same piece of art. So I said, upscale this sketch, replicating it exactly, and still, not exactly. So I went to upscale image in Runway, and that gave me a 4K image that didn't add any additional details or anything. It just sharpened and upscaled. Next is this pie chart. Now, There's really not too much to go on here, so I'm gonna assume this says product sponsorships, and this whole pie chart is about profit percentages. So I went onto a pie chart website and put in some other points of profitability, and then I took that info plus my ChatGPT textless pie graph into Photoshop, where I rebuilt the whole dang thing, and I couldn't be happier. Now, we can actually see quite a bit of this slide, and so I was just going to assemble it in Photoshop until I watched a Jurassic Time interview with Caroline Quinn, the art department coordinator on Jurassic Park, who shared a wealth of information and old pictures and even some of the slides, so I would use this as a resource. Now, this screen capture is sped up 9,994%. But I essentially traced over her slide, creating solid color shapes. I then added gradients and all the details that were provided in this pretty clear but somewhat damaged and blown out slide.
I wasn't in charge of it. We found someone else to kind of be the art director, as it were, and her name was Patty Podesta, because she had a lot of experience with projectors and slides and how it all works with the DP and the cinematography and the lighting and all that stuff. And I was basically working for her, put all that together.
And funny enough, when I was comparing this finished slide to the movie, I happened to notice that actually the movie version of this slide is a little bit different. It's got white font and it goes to 1997, and so I needed to remedy this. So I'm thinking that her slides that she shared are actually earlier drafts of the images and not the final assets, which is what I'm aiming to recreate. And here's the result. Thanks a lot, Patty, Caroline, and Jurassic Time. Couldn't have done it without you. Yes. So the comparative projected attendance slide, where we're arguing that Jurassic Park is gonna way outperform both zoos and sports by 1993 and 1995. So let's remake this. Let's make John's dream a reality. So looking at this first image for sports, it looks, I feel like it's football. It looks like football. I don't know what exactly, so I asked ChatGPT 4.0 to enhance the clarity and extend the sports photograph, but it asked me for more clarity for what I was asking. And so I told it, and it made this, which doesn't do it for me. It doesn't seem like the picture. So I tried other options, both real and AI, and this one's close enough. This next picture looks like a bird, like a heron, so I had ChatGPT 4.0 make that. But on closer inspection, it's got this sort of saggy neck thing. So I looked around the internet and found a wattled crane. Actually has this waddle. So I'm thinking it's probably that. Next, these are giraffes. Straight up. I'm thinking they probably didn't have any dinosaur images yet to use, and so they just went with some regular alive animals. More football, I'm pretty sure, and I had ChatGPT create this image, which then needed to be touched up in Photoshop, and I think I did I could see this being the image. This next image, penguins. It's pretty obviously penguins, and these penguins aren't the exact penguins, but they're doing the same damn thing, so I like that. And finally, the big question, what is this image for Jurassic? Again, they didn't really have dinosaur images yet, it would seem. So I'm thinking this is probably some sort of bird, large flightless bird probably, just judging by this shape of the neck and the body down here. So let's try a couple on for size. This could be an ostrich. It's got the long neck, but its face isn't curved enough. Perhaps it's an emu, which does have a long neck and kind of a curved face, but not slender enough. I'm thinking maybe it's a black flamingo, which are a rare phenomenon caused by melanism, a genetic condition in birds where they produce too much of the pigment melanin and have black feathers because of it. Or this could be a moa, an extinct flightless bird briefly mentioned in the Jurassic World Alive video game. I also toyed with the idea of cassowaries, turkeys, and even vultures, but nothing really scratched the itch. So I figured, let me try a dinosaur. So I found this image of a sauropod that was moving its neck in such a way that it created a similar shape in the shadow, and I'm pretty pleased about it. So, because I'm the authority at this point, I'm going with this one. Now, this slide looks similar, but it says 1991, which makes me think it's additional comparative attendance. And since Jurassic Park wouldn't be open until 1993, I will not include it on this slide. And we'll probably use a picture of a live animal or zoos. And so, as a nod to Spielberg's inspiration, Hatari, I'll use rhinos. Alright, so this one seems straightforward. It seems like some sort of chart, revenues. So I slapped something together based upon what it looked like. It was pretty sloppy, and I actually copied a table I made in Microsoft Word, because I'm actually not sure how to make a graph in Photoshop without tediously just drawing lines. And it's done!
That is one big pile of shit.
Oh, you shut up, Malcolm. Alright, so this is clearly some sort of pie chart, projected costs versus returns year one. So there's enough information here where I feel like I probably could recreate this entirely in Photoshop. I'll go through, I did a little problem solving to figure out what the words could be, made some educated guesses, and I think it looks great. And wouldn't you know it, a few months after I created this slide, I found the Caroline Quinn interview, and she shared this exact slide. And I was pretty darn close. So since mine isn't cut off and is high quality, I'll just use hers to inform the design and information, such as the 4.7 billion instead of 12 million and coloring, etc. Looks great. Alright, so we've already seen these two, but now this is new, and I'm thinking it's bones, chromosomes. So I tell ChatGPT 4.1 to brighten and enhance this graphic, just to see what it comes up with. And it kind of just turned them into boots. And you know what, it gives me inspiration. I know it's not correct, but it could very well be the legs of a dinosaur. A brachiosaurus, to be more specific, that gets taller and taller. And so this attendance is showing that it's gonna increase. So I'll just draw this brachio the best I think. Some nice shading and cut it down and match it to the original as best I can. And that's pretty excellent. Oh, seems there is text hidden in the dark in there. Beautiful. I love it. Wonderful. It's cute. It's quirky. The line weight's a bit weird, but I'm happy. And then I watched Caroline Quinn's interview, and she shared this slide. Awesome. I was right about things, but now I gotta remake it. So let's do that. What a silly, derpy looking brachiosaurus. But it's great because look at all this different information we have. I will say her dates are different than the ones that you see on the slides in the actual movie, which I think is just further proof that these weren't the final assets to be used in the film. Regardless, I'm still happy to have found these images because they are greatly informing this faithful recreation project. So anyway, here's my final, and it's great. Alright, so up here near the boom mic, it looks like the Jurassic Park logo, the yellow outlined red logo, but specifically with the TM. Now, would you believe me if I told you I had a difficult time finding a nice high-resolution version of this color scheme logo? Maybe because of the quality of the red just makes compression weird. So I used some coding called Real Asurgan. I found it on GitHub, and it's a media upscaler that works on your local computer. You use Anaconda prompt to input your source image, and then it handles the upscaling. Now, since it is coding, you can do all sorts of tweaks. I just use the default settings, and I think it looks great. Slap the TM on, and beautiful! Moving on! So behind Gennaro, there's this globe, like you'd see on a 90s science book. There's only half of it, and though Caroline has shared a picture, it doesn't reveal more information. So I prompted ChatGPT 4.1 to create the other half of this 90s graphic. The results weren't spectacular. So knowing that Photoshop's generative tools use the image as reference for generation, I tried my luck there. And then I took that image back into ChatGPT 4.1, and the results weren't quite as bad as I feared.
Yeah, I know, they're a lot worse.
Oh, you shut up, Malcolm. I actually did quite a few more prompts, but this was the best result, and I felt bad about wasting more resources on this image. Now, this eluded me. I mean, it seems to be some sort of architectural landscape plan or something like that. You know, I looked around and I stumbled upon Lauren Polizzi's website, and she was the set designer for Jurassic Park. So I looked through a bunch of her plans and other plans and various things, hoping I could find this mysterious shape. But none of it was really, it was close, but none of it was really this. So I took this and prompted ChatGPT 4.1 to generate a clearer version of what you think this is. And results are what you'd expect. But then Caroline Quinn shared this image and I immediately recognized that shape in the upper left. This was the actual slide. I'm sure of it. I brought it into Photoshop, color corrected it, and boom, baby, we're done. Now, for whatever reason, I can't help but think that this is some sort of aerial view. And then Quinn shared this image, although I don't think it is the exact picture. But in the spirit of keeping this whole thing authentic, I might as well use the actual slides Caroline shared. So, yes, it's a bench. This bench specifically. No, this bench specifically. Maybe this bench? What if it's actually a tree from one of Lauren Polizzi's construction photos? And taking into account the imagery of the next upcoming slides in the slideshow, I think using one of these pictures would be more authentic than some Photoshop AI fakery. So I'm going to use this. With the context of construction, behind John it looks like those are some trees, so looking through Lauren Polizzi's set construction photos, there seem to be visually similar trees in a couple of the pictures. As for this slide, it's quite clearly construction on the visitor center. So I brought the slide into Photoshop where I cleaned it up and sharpened it and adjusted the lighting. I even brought in chunks of real pictures for added fidelity, and I'll just mock this up in Photoshop as close to what I think the image ought to be. And then hopefully one of these AI tools can just enhance it. Gooder. I asked Gemini 2.5 to enhance the photorealism, and it did some good things, but the ground's all weird and soft, so back into Photoshop to make another version, and then back into Nano Banana, which did better, but added too many people, which I removed in Photoshop, and at the end of the day, I think I might just use a real photo. It's more real and authentic. So this next slide, the continental plane, very clear on the Blu-ray, cleaned it up in Photoshop, and in late April 2025, I used the runway.ml upscale tool to not great effect. The details were so muddy that the whole thing just looked muddy. So I tried ChatGPT 4.1, which produced decent results, but the plane was never really in the exact right spot, and the coastline was never really the exact right trees. So in mid-September, I prompted Gemini Nano Banana to enhance the clarity of this image, and I think it did a great job. Just a little bit of tweaks are needed since the engines were moved and a couple smaller features of the plane, but otherwise, I think it's a pretty good match. Another plane. So I'll prompt GPT 4.1 to upscale, and wow, I'll ask it to brighten, and it did a decently wonky AI job, but when compared to the first output, it's obvious which is closer to the original image. So I'll go with that one. So I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is a pink flower. So I'll extract that image from the open mat, and I'll instruct ChatGPT 4.1 to brighten and extend this photo to the right. Then I prompted a couple of exposure changes and took my results into Photoshop. I was actually pretty impressed at the quality that I gotten from this early version of Chat when I was using it, but you know, it still needed tweaks. So in Photoshop, I played with curves, took my favorite parts of each output it had given me and made the flower more pink and saturated. I would guess that this is a yellow tropical flower, since flowers seems to be the theme of the slides right now. extracted this image from the Blu-ray, and just as before asked ChatGPT to sharpen and extend it, which I believe yielded poor results from lack of detail. So I took the screen grab into Photoshop, generatively extended it there, exported a low-res version, and then brought that into ChatGPT to enhance and up-res, and it output this. Great, moving on. So this slide on the left, probably a resort of sorts was my best guess, so I prompted ChatGPT 4.1 to extend the left side of this wide shot of a 90s Hawaiian resort. And it did, a decent job. It's a food court and I see the black and blue windows, so I iterated with slightly different worded prompts. And that yielded loosely correct images, but I figured I probably need an image with more information. So went into Photoshop and I made this abomination. And I took it back into Chat, which starting in May of 2025 updated to Chat 4.0, which now handled the image generation instead of using Dahlia 3, which then started to get really picky about the prompts I was feeding it, and the results were pretty terrible. I mean, I guess it's an enhanced version of my crappy image, but it's still like the worst image ever. Like, I wanted this tool to do all the heavy lifting and really figure it out, as it seemingly had done before for me. Ugh. Google Gemini 2.0's Imagen 3 model didn't really do much better. So back to GPT 4.0, where I used a prompt to let it know that this was an AI bullshit and that it should make it look better, and it did. I gave additional instructions and prompts to decent results, and these images would do for now. In September, with the rolling out of Google Gemini 2.5's flash image Nano Banana, I tried a couple of outputs from this thing, still yielding stupid results until I saw this one. And this one has je ne sais quoi. It has that square that's very visually apparent on the slide, and so I'm going to call this quest done. Alright, so I'm almost positive this is going to be another flower. So I'll extract it as best I can, and I researched tropical flowers, but none really shared the aesthetic of pointy and red, maybe. But I do know of one tropical plant that's very pointy, and that's the bird of paradise. You can find it in Hawaii, it's very beautiful and exotic, so I figured why couldn't this be the slide? Which felt further verified when I discovered in Jurassicpedia's collection this image which they claimed had part in the slideshow. But when comparing it to the movie, I wasn't convinced this was the slide. So back to Google searching for a red spiky plant, and I discovered the red sensation Cordyline. So I've jumped back into Photoshop and combined details from different pictures to create this image for enhancement. Then I prompted Nano Banana to enhance the photorealism, and then back to Photoshop for some final tweaks. I think it looks pretty darn good, all things considered, so moving on. Okay, so right behind Malcolm is like a little bit of red, and the full frame reveals that it's definitely trees on the beach. And so I flattened it out in Photoshop and I extended it, and then I asked ChatGPT to upscale, and it did a pretty damn good job, so I'm going to move on. Nothing visible behind John, and we just did this one, but this one looks like a man with a golden tie with a DNA theme, and a woman next to him who's holding a white coffee cup with Jurassic Park logo. And GPT 4.1 did a pretty good job, but not all the details, so into Photoshop to change her shirt blue. And add the Jurassic Park logo. Kind of warp it on there, remove Hawaii, and add a cover onto the book. Realized after the fact that the book available in the Gallimimus gift shop actually has a variant cover, and so I'll use that instead. And honestly, I'm pretty impressed with all this. I think it really shaped up out of nowhere. But guess what? Quinn provided the actual photo of her and John Bell, the art director.
We photoshopped the DNA strand onto the tie and the Jurassic Park logo onto my mug and added a background. And there was that photo.
So you don't get any more authentic than that. I cleaned it up a little bit and color corrected, and there you are. Okay, so this one was a journey. So I'm thinking it's probably some sort of stock photography. Someone sitting by a waterfall. So I used Photoshop to put this picture together and then asked ChatGPT to extend the photo to the left. And the results are fine. I mean, what can I expect? I gave it a very poor picture and a relatively loose prompt. I was hoping it would figure out the things rather than me having to tell it. So I went back to the drawing board, this time literally drawing. And having looked at it again, I'm thinking it's actually a raft. It's somebody's leg sticking over the side of a raft, and so I'm gonna draw that. I mean, Jungle River ride, right? That's adventure. That's Jurassic Park, putting people in danger. So I drew this up and put a little green there to indicate foliage, and I think this is perfect. I might just use this. Just kidding. In Nano Banana, I said make this a photorealistic man tubing near tropical ribbon-like waterfalls in the tropical jungle. Doubled up on tropical. And it gave me this guy in the tropical jungle, and I'm thinking pretty darn good. So back into Photoshop, slapped the Jurassic Park logo on there and some film grain, and I'm calling this finished. Moving on. Do my eyes deceive me, or am I looking at 60% of an image in focus on the Blu-ray? Extended this image in Photoshop, upscaled to 4K in Runway, and then I took that into ChatGPT 4.1, which followed my prompt, but also kind of changed the image a little bit. So I enhanced the Runway output in Gemini's Nano Banana, and then added my favorite elements together in Photoshop. Another super clear slide, fantastic Jurassic tennis, obviously. I'll just assemble this in Photoshop. It's just a couple of elements. They might have even made it in Photoshop themselves. So a couple of hibiscus flowers, a tennis ball, the word Jurassic tennis, and I've pretty much just been using one font for all of these slides, and it's Myriad Pro. It seems to look close enough to everything I've been matching. Add some shading and some color adjustments, and there you have a beautiful slide. But then I found Caroline's, and everything I did was kind of pointless. I was very close. It actually says Jurassic Park tennis, which is different. So I'll just use hers, because authentic. All right, so the next slide we see is maybe a black and white photo, has the letters I and then N or M. So I'll look for clues in the appendix of the David Coep shooting script. And I found a couple of words it could be during this slideshow presentation, but I figured it would be wise to look around at context clues from the other slides also being projected, because immediately there's that same purple font. ADV, definitely adventure. The word is definitely adventure. It's gotta be. I use some generative fill in Photoshop, find the right font, and I think this brown up here is probably an alligator, a crocodile. That's adventurous. So now the plan, like before, is to create an image that's close to what I'm trying to create, but purposefully poor quality so that ChatGPT would have to fill in all the unknown variables and photorealism. But ChatGPT 4.1 actually delivered exactly my picture, which is weird because I wasn't going for that this time. I gave it a prompt to change the image a little bit and it gave me this better picture, but back into Photoshop. It's not what I wanted. I need to provide this stupid computer the most clear example of this picture that I need, and then for it to take that, keeping everything essentially the same except for the photorealism and potentially lighting. So here's everything, baby. I'll even throw a frog in for a little more adventure in this picture, and then take it into ChatGPT and make it nighttime. Too dark. Add a flash photography light. Okay, well, enhance this, I say. Okay, it's enhanced. Make it brighter and put the alligator's jaw underwater. Alright, so I'm gonna keep changing my wording here, and I keep trying different prompts, lighting under the water, and it's just, it's not exactly what I want. And so I fiddle more. Yeah, make this look like a realistic nature photo in the swamp. Great, make the frog swimming in the water and holding the lily pad. I like this frog and I like this result, and so I'm gonna combine them in Photoshop, make my own final piece. A couple masks, beautiful. It's fantastic, I love it. And then, you guessed it, Caroline Quinn shared this golf course. So I cropped the image and threw it into Gemini. It said recreate this photo of a tropical golf course with more detail and less contrast in high definition. A setting sun beyond the top right corner spills golden light across the course, causing the shadows of trees and sand trap and terrain to angle towards the bottom left corner of the image. It did a good job. So all that was left was for me to make the word adventure the proper scale and fill in some top and bottom areas with generative fill in Photoshop, add curves and adjust the lighting a little bit, and there you have it. So I'm sure you can tell the disappointment in my voice because, you know, golfing is considerably less adventurous than an alligator attacking a frog, but, you know, what you gonna do? It came out good. Funny enough, Quinn also provided this image, which is probably the one I thought was immense beauty, so I'll upscale this, but Runway did a ugly 3K upscale, and Gemini moved the elements, so I took that output into Photoshop and adjusted the text properly. But then I was looking at it, and it almost seems like these trees are from the opposite side of the image. So I tried to flip it around and place the text where it ought to be, but I don't think that's correct. So I'm just gonna keep the original upscale Photoshop I made. Caroline also provided this slide in the set, and so I cleaned it up. Next we have this kid who disappears but then comes back. Looks like he's wearing some sort of dinosaur hat and a tie-dye shirt, so let's see what ChatGPT 4.1 can do. Not bad, not bad. I think it changed his race, and love the dinosaur tie-dye shirt, but we gotta add an eyeball back. So I'll just touch that up in Photoshop and extend it out a little bit, and there we go. So earlier in the scene, right after the John and Caroline Photoshop, there's this image, which is a bit ambiguous, but after this child, we have this image, which to me looks like John Hammond standing under the Jurassic Park gates. So I looked through some BTS photos of stand-ins, and I didn't find one with John Hammond, unfortunately. So I figured I would take some behind-the-scenes construction photos and fuse them in ChatGPT 4.1. Use Picture 2 to enhance and extend Picture 1. Yes, okay. Well, okay. This is what I asked for. So I asked, can you make this a daytime picture? And it thinks. And it made it a daytime photo. The guy looks a little in pain, and people in the back look kind of weird, but I said, remake the second image using the man from the first image, removing the car, adding the words Jurassic Park to the arch, and adding more machinery in the back. It said it couldn't do that because it violates their content policies. I assume that has to do with likeness and licenses. So I tried again and again with different prompts, but it was remembering the Jurassic Park and the actor. So I just started a new chat thread with it and made my requests there. Make him balding, add some glasses, move him around, you know, various adjustments just to see what it can do. And it did pretty good. Even if it was a real picture, it would have been Richard Attenborough's body double anyway. But let's just try this thing. So I made a crappy Photoshop, face kind of squashed on there, and GPT kind of just squashed his head on there too. So I photoshopped all the details I liked together onto what looks like an album cover. And then I ran that through Gemini, which fixed the gate and added a rail. And it looks pretty much like the original, except it doesn't need a rail. But then Caroline Quinn's materials came through, and I found this guy who probably could be the stand-in for John Hammond. So if I was gonna be doing a fake guy anyway, I might as well do the real fake guy. Back to Photoshop. So I pretty much took all the pictures I had and combined them together just to reference the dirt marks and where everybody's standing and how it all works. And what I realized is that my most recent Nano Banana output actually seemed to use exactly this image for its background replication, which is pretty interesting. So I will use pieces of that image to give this a little more fidelity. And then I'll add details back into John's sleeve. And if we look at the original, we could see some vehicles in the back. So using this truck from a picture of the T-Rex paddock construction and this truck from the gate construction, I'll add these both into the background behind John. Since they are real trucks and they were really at these locations, it feels more authentic than just picking a random truck or AI trucks. So I'll just use these photos to fill in some details and add as much authenticity as I can. And here's the result. Looks good enough to be the cover of a Time magazine. Moving on. So sandwiched briefly between our tie-dye kid is this family, standing in front of a Jurassic Park car, 4 of them it seems. So I photoshopped that together with a better picture of the car, and then took that into ChatGPT 4.1, which said the request violated content policies. I'm thinking maybe having to do with kids and family, so I retried with more ambiguous terms. Still problems. Even in a new chat, it was time to do something different. So I jumped into Photoshop, added more details and monkey heads to them since I'll switch it out after. It wouldn't do it. So I asked, can you explain why? And it told me because it can tell that there's children with monkey heads. So I said, all right, remove the children. It still wouldn't do anything. So I needed to find a new tool to do this. Google VO had just dropped, and so I decided to go with Google. Added the picture to Gemini 2.0, and it did all right. I came back into ChatGPT, and as a workaround for the family thing, to make sure that Chat knows that it's an AI image, and it actually did pretty decently. Too many kids, and some details on the car aren't right. So I went back into Photoshop and made a really crappy but clear picture. Then I went into ChatGPT, and it did a pretty phenomenal job. To relax after a job well done, I started flipping through my Jurassic Park brochure. But then, what caught my eye? This little girl. Could it be? I knew my job wasn't over yet. So I took this original mock-up back into Gemini, which now had an update, Gemini 2.5, and it did good. I mean, it looks realistic. The car's not right and there's too many people. So I grabbed a real picture of the car and the girl and put them into Photoshop, then back into Gemini and did variations in Gemini, and finally ending in Photoshop to get rid of any weirdness. Whew! So here's what looks like some sciencey stuff. So I prompted ChatGPT 4.0 to upscale, and it did a pretty good job. There's some slight differences, so I took it into Photoshop and replaced their image of tadpoles with what I think is a cell. I used the liquefy tool to bend it. Then I just cropped it into the proper size, and there you go. But as fate would have it, in my continued research, I found the amber mine actually had the original slide. I ran that through Gemini, which actually didn't do anything. So I ran it through ChatGPT 5.0, and it made a decent upscale. And this next slide is quite obviously a scientist looking into a microscope. GPT's Dahlia 3 generated this properly the first try. Great. So to me, this slide looks like a double nuclei cell. So I'll correct the angle in Photoshop and clean up all the unwanted elements out of there. And then bring this mock-up into ChatGPT 4.1 and just straight up upscale. All right, great job. Give me a variation? Okay. And then I found the actual picture on Jurassicpedia's Facebook. So in Photoshop, I combined all my efforts, and I like it. Moving on. So this just looks like your standard classic global map. I was able to find 2 very close images on Google, and I decided because I think I can see some oceanic detail, I'll combine them both, as well as snag the North Pole from another map. Pretty darn good. Next. All right, so another world map, but this one SION, since we're about to have a bunch of slides about Jurassic Park Europe and something else, I'm thinking it's the word expansion. In Carolyn's interview, she included this slide, global, which makes me think it says global expansion, so that further cements that idea. And so using these elements I already made, I'll just recreate both of them in Photoshop. And here you have the results. All right, so Jurassic Park Europe, it seems like, and it's this island shape that I was able to extract. My initial feeling was that it was North Sentinel Island, until Quinn's notes sent me looking at Kiambu Island, which might be part of the Kiabu Islands in Fiji, but nothing matched exactly, so I would take my image into ChatGPT 4.1, which did fine. but I wanted better than fine. So a couple months later, I went into Gemini 2.5 and using this photo supplied by the Amber Mine, who said it was part of the original slideshow. And I said enhance and properly expose and output Europe.jpg using bonus 06 JPEG as reference. And it did a great job. So I took this into Photoshop, added the text, scaled up the image and text for the other slides, and fantastic. So this island, different, Jurassic Park something. It's the same picture, more quality, but we're still cutting off this operative word. So from the screen caps, I was able to Photoshop together this island, and so we'll see what AI can do. I asked ChatGPT to upscale it, and it did a pretty good job. I probably won't need this bottom island, which it just made up, but I like this. While searching through the appendix of the script, I discovered the words Jurassic Park Europe and Jurassic Park near Japan. I'm thinking that's what it is. A Google search of the term Jurassic Park Japan found me this image hosted by the Amber Mine. So I took it into Photoshop and erased the text and the border and prepared it for AI generation through Gemini 2.5, which gave me this result. It's good. It's got like some weird textures in the water, but a reverse Google image search actually found me Turtle Island, Fiji, the actual island. And though I couldn't find the exact angle, I did find this picture on Jurassicpedia's Facebook, which is the highest res version I've seen of this. The island of Isla Nublar, where the latest tourist attraction is about to go warm. So I flipped the image horizontally and ran it through Gemini to clean it up. Then I went into Photoshop and I took my favorite elements from all my highest resolution images and threw some text onto it, and it looks great. And wouldn't you know it, Carolyn Quinn shared this slide, so I made my own high-resolution version. Now this one kind of stumped me. I was thinking maybe it's the desktop of a computer being shown, but I don't know. Desktops kind of looked different back in the day, but I have no idea what else this could be. So I guess that's where I'll start. So I open Google Gemini and I say use this as a guide to create an early 90s silicone graphics desktop containing picture files, etc. Because for a business presentation, right? Since that's kind of what I'm trying to do. It creates a picture of a desktop, and that's like I actually just want the screen only. So I say create only the screen image and without the bar graph. And it gives me the image, but it's the desktop still. So I say full screen, snip the image from that desktop, thinking it would do a thing, but... And so it did a thing. It doesn't look anything like the example, though, so I think it's got to be something else. So I asked Gemini, what could this image be? The context is science. To which it says it could be a chromatogram, specifically a thin layer chromatogram TLC plate viewed under UV light. And it gives me some reasons why. You know, it gives me a bunch of information, and that's neat, but I cannot confirm. So I say, can you create this image more clearly as a thin layer chromatogram? And that doesn't look like what I'm looking for. So I go into Google and I search with chromatogram, and it turns up a lot of pictures that look a lot like an image that Carolyn Quinn shared. So I'm thinking it's probably this chromatogram thing. So it's just a matter of finding the proper image. I looked through a couple here and there, and I found a few that had nice blank spots between the columns of colorful lights. And this technology can be used for DNA sequencing, apparently. So it all feels properly thematic, and so here's my final. Alright, so we definitely have the word park, and maybe that's some palm fronds or something, or I found this picture by Fiona Madden while I was searching for stuff. And so I just flopped it horizontally in Photoshop, added some curves and some palm fronds, and honestly, I think it captures the spirit of what I think it is. It's not exact, but it's close enough for this total stab in the dark. Now this is obviously the island we already made, but with just the word Jurassic, which makes me think it says Jurassic Park and Europe on different slides. Now look to the left, and you can see some ocean. So I was thinking maybe Jurassic Park Japan, but when you brighten the footage, there's no island or whatever. So I looked at photos of the Nepali coast on Kauai Island, where they filmed some of Jurassic Park. I looked at photos of Keopuka Rock off the coast of Maui, and Kaanapali Beach in Maui, which is just another nice beach. Not the right picture yet. So I sought guidance from the appendix, which revealed that InGen Construction had already leased a large tract in the Azores for Jurassic Park Europe. So I started looking at pictures from the Azores. This one you've already seen. This one's just stunning. The Azores are actually part of Portugal, though they're way out in the mid-Atlantic. Okay, so I saw this picture and I was like, that's the one. That's the one. That's the coast. It's beautiful. It's perfect. In fact, it's probably actually the picture they used, and you can't convince me otherwise. Moving on. So I think this is Jurassic Park Europe, as I've already made. But this one, it's the tip of a letter. Could be Park, could be Europe. So I'm going to go with Europe. I'm going to use this picture from the Azores, get rid of the people in Photoshop, and just add that. And, you know, it's pretty much dark on that left side. Now, this looks like hydrangeas, my girlfriend pointed out. So I'm going to see if the Azores have hydrangeas, which they do. They have a lot of hydrangeas. It's kind of their thing, I guess. So let's extract this picture, remove Grant and some scratches, and see what Gemini 2.5 can do. Great. Bring it into Photoshop. I'll extend with generative fill. ChatGPT 5 had yielded this result. And while I didn't like the whole picture, I did like the clarity of the hydrangeas. So I'll use them in this Photoshop. And then I'll replace the top here with a nice coast. I think that does the thing. I'm very satisfied. Now, this slide really doesn't have too much visual information, just kind of some green and maybe some small splotches. So when I was searching for lily pads earlier, I found this image, which has a bird, and considering Grant's dinosaurs to bird theory, this image is thematically appropriate. I had also made this slide somewhere along the way, which it could also be. But when I saw Caroline Quinn's behind-the-scenes photo from the set of this slide next to one of the last slides we see in the show, it made me think that maybe it could be this image, which ChatGPT 5 didn't enhance. So I tried Gemini 2.5's Nano Banana, which didn't yield really more details even though I requested them. I figured this is probably leaves or something, so I just added details in Photoshop into the shadowed area. And I think it did a pretty decent job of getting across what this could be. Alright, so we can't actually see anything behind John. And we've seen these already, but here on the last frame, and using visual information from the Blu-ray, you can see some flowers, maybe. So we'll take our slide from behind Grant, and I'll prompt Gemini to add hydrangeas, and in Photoshop I'll move pieces around and add the letters and make it this. I'm happy. Moving on. And the final slide of the scene, it's the Jurassic Park stone logo. This thing is great, but it's not available in high quality anywhere. So with Photoshop and screen grabs from the Blu-ray, I was able to assemble this. Now, I figured it'd be easy to just upscale it through ChatGPT, so back in April I tried it, but it just added a bunch of details. I tried it through Runway, which actually didn't make it sharp either. It kind of made it smudgy in areas. I tried it in Gemini in September, and actually that did a pretty good job. So I took that photo into Photoshop and I straightened it out, brightened it up, and here's it in comparison to the original. I like it. So it was finally time to figure out the logistics of which screens are projecting which, and so I turned to the appendix, which revealed that the slideshow had 6 screens around the room. And looking at the picture supplied by Caroline Quinn, we can see there are probably 6 screens there. So I'll set up a After Effects file that plays along with the film, and I'll just insert my slides into where I think they would be. Now, oddly enough, it almost seems like the majority of the slides are behind Malcolm and Gennaro. We're mostly looking that way for the majority of this scene. And so you don't really see too much behind Grant ever, and sometimes behind Sattler. Very interesting. And this is not the nicest way to present my findings. And so I think I'm going to do it different. I think I'm going to have to model this scene in Blender. And so I started doing that. Now, I'm a little bit of a novice at Blender, and so I figured I would start with something simple like a plate. Because it's just extrusion and scaling, right? Nothing could go wrong, right? Oh God, what have I done? I made this tabletop, and I downloaded these chairs. I did slightly customize them, give them a new skin. This projector screen model I downloaded and just started setting it up. Now, if we look at the table, there's quite a bit of stuff on it. We got the branded plates, we got a gold plate under that, we have a placemat under that, we have the silverware, we have brochures, we have a brochure holder, we have a very large fruit centerpiece. Everybody has 3 cups with this Jurassic Park mug. So there's a lot to sculpt here. So I better get started. So after retopologizing my plate and adding a couple more details to the place setting, I moved on to the fruit platter, which had a papaya and some purple grapes. I modeled the grapes and I modeled the apple. I didn't model papaya. I did find that online. And then I'm going persimmons as the shiny fruits on the outside. Now, again, I didn't make the persimmon model, so it was a little bit finicky to work with, but then I modeled the glasses with some ice inside the water. I think it's an iced tea additionally next to it. Put ice cubes in that, because iced tea. And then I'll model the mug here. Now, I had to watch all sorts of tutorials on how to do this, and even then, it was still giving me all sorts of problems. So definitely, this isn't like a tutorial on how to do this. This is just showing my process. Because when it came time to skinning, that means putting the texture on the outside, I was having trouble. So I kind of did some ass backwards sort of thing where I mapped it out and I figured out what pieces were which, and then in Photoshop, I put together a skin in roughly the right spots. Now, there's probably a better way to do this, but, you know, what you gonna do? Anyway, so I realized I can take these 6 screens and I can shine a spotlight onto them. And that spotlight can actually be used to project an image. Incredible. I was gonna actually take this footage into After Effects and put the screens on there, but it turns out I can actually just straight project them out of a light source and add atmosphere between it all, just like in the film. According to a post I saw on the Amber Mine, the projector they used in this scene is the Kodak Carousel Series 4000. I looked around for a 3D model for this thing that was free because I didn't really want to model it, and what I found was not too much. So I made a free login for Meshy.ai and I uploaded exactly this picture, and it did a phenomenal job of making this thing. The knob's a bit weird, and then I had to make a skin, and that skin looks great. Look at this. So I went to download it, and it turns out it's not free. You have to pay money to download things. And not only that, I keep getting meshy advertisements now on my phone. So just beware of the hidden costs of free things on the internet. But Trellis through huggingface.co did a phenomenal job. I mean, it's not as clean, and there's 2 projector lenses on this thing. The button's crazy, but for a free model, I'll take it. You can see the geometry isn't ideal, and I am also not great at fixing things, so I'm just doing some weird stuff to get rid of this big weird button by just pushing it inside and making a closed face. You'll never see that anyway. So after that was done, I was looking at how these projectors work, and I realized something unexpected. The transition between each slide in a slide projector is pretty much just on and off. Whereas in Jurassic Park slideshow, they fade.
There are also some bigger units like a dissolve unit, and the dissolve unit would allow you to set up and do transitions between slides as you were projecting your presentation. And it allowed you to plug 2 different projectors into this box, so then you could kind of transition between the projectors as they were advancing their slides.
Alright, so John Hammond spared no expense and he's got a dissolve unit, as we might be able to see here with these 2 projectors, but if you look above it, you'll see that the screens are being rear projected by 2 projectors, stored in rolling cabinets as seen here in the BTS photo. So I'm going to use artistic license to justify this, but I'm going to assume that there are 2 projectors for the front of each screen, and we fade between them. So I'll create an array that is a copy that references a previous model, so any changes I make to that first model will actually change all the rest. This is shaping up beautifully, so it's finally time to get the proper images on these screens, get some exports going, and like and subscribe if you haven't already. Please! Before the final presentation though, I do want to share images that I found that were reportedly part of the slideshow, but weren't necessarily captured in the final cut of the film. So I can't really confirm if they were used or not, but I cleaned some of them up anyway. And my next major project is a 360 VR version of this presentation, and so these slides will certainly be used. Did I say like and subscribe yet? And how many images did I ultimately make?
Not too mean.
Almost 1,000 files went into making this project, and for the final selection, about 72. Like Hammond, I believe creation is an act of sheer will. I don't believe there are bad artists, just unpracticed artists and bad art. AI is a bad artist. It's far more practiced than any human, but it's far less intentional. Stuff just happens. Automated pixel creation is based on algorithms, and chaos reigns to some degree. Using AI tools is like outsourcing your art. You can give direction, but you relinquish control over the final output.
When we have control again.
You never had control. That's the illusion.
And so, after months of tedious work, researching and learning, may I proudly present my recreation of the Jurassic Park lunch slideshow presentation. Mouthful.
None of these attractions are ready yet, of course, but the park will open with the basic tour you're about to take. And then other rides will come online, 6 or 12 months after that. Absolutely spectacular designs, spared no expense.
And we can charge anything we want, 2,000 a day, 10,000 a day, and people will pay it. And then there's the merchandise.
Donald. This park was not dedicated only for the super rich. Everyone in the world has the right to enjoy these items.
Sure, they will. What, we'll have a coupon day or something.
Gee, the lack of humility before nature is being displayed here. Staggers.
Well, thank you, Dr. Malcolm, but I think things are a little bit different than you and I had feared.
Yeah, I know. There are a lot worse.
Now, wait a second now. We haven't even seen the party.
Let him talk. There's no reason. No, I want to hear a review part. I really do.
Yeah, don't you see the danger, John, inherent in what you're doing here? Genetic power is the most awesome force the planet's ever seen, but you wield it like a kid that's found his dad's gun.
It's hardly appropriate to start hurling generalizations.
If I may, I'll tell you the problem with the scientific power that you're using here. It didn't require any discipline to attain it. You know, you read what others had done, and you took the next step. You didn't earn the knowledge for yourselves, so you don't take any responsibility for it. You stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as you could, and before you even knew what you had, you patented it and packaged it and slapped it on a plastic lunchbox, and now selling it. You're selling. Well,
I don't think you're giving us our due credit. Our scientists have done things which nobody's ever done before.
yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
Condors. Condors are on the verge of extinction. If I was to create a flock of condors on this island, you wouldn't have anything to say.
Now, hold on. This isn't some species that was obliterated by deforestation or the building of a dam. Dinosaurs had their shot, and nature selected them for extinction.
I simply don't understand this Luddite attitude, especially from scientists. I mean, how can we stand in the light of discovery and not act?
Oh, what's so great about discovery? It's a violent, penetrating act that scars what explores what you call discovery. I call the rape of the natural world.
Well, the question is, how can you know anything about an extinct ecosystem? And therefore, how could you ever assume that you can control it? You have plants in this building that are poisonous. You pick them because they look good. But these are aggressive living things that have no idea what century they're in, and they'll defend themselves violently if necessary.
Dr. Grant, if there's one person here who could appreciate what I'm trying to do.
The world has just changed so radically, and we're all running to catch up. I don't want to jump to any conclusions, but look. Dinosaurs and man, two species separated by 65 million years of evolution, have just been suddenly thrown back into the mix together. How can we possibly have the slightest idea what to expect?
I don't believe it. I don't believe it. You're meant to come down here and defend me against these characters, and the only one I've got on my side is the blood-sucking lawyer.
Thank you.
Well, they're here.
So what do you think? Was it worth all my time and effort to recreate this thing, and did I do a decent job? Are there any slides you like the best? Are there any slides that you think I got wrong? Or maybe any deep dives you want to see me do next time? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.